I'm equally excited to see the race that appears to be gearing up in front of us, as I now hear game audio. And they're off. Both of them getting started on City Escape, the first stage of the run. City Escape starts off in a snowboard section down the streets of pseudo San Francisco. Both of these racers going to be doing jump tricks off of these ramps. They're not incredibly fast to do them, but if you miss them, it costs you about 5 seconds. Zetti, unfortunately, not quite getting the smoothest movement around the corner, but Shiba K not getting the smoothest movement off the boost panel. So we are pretty close. A lot of Sonic Adventure 2 races happening today. I'm very excited. Sonic has a couple abilities: the spin dash, the homing attack, the somersault, and just running. Shiba K actually missed the City Escape skip and is going for it again. Zetti missed it as well, but both racers are now about even, which is something that I honestly love about City Escape skip in this race format. Whether or not a racer makes it or does not make it, it can really even out where the racers are, at least to start the race. Sonic's spin dash helps him charge a lot of speed at once. The somersault allows him to get under barriers, as we're going to see at the beginning of the truck section. Unfortunately, Shiba K falling off of the loop. Jumping so that he does not have to worry about hitting the springs at the bottom, and also so that he does not have to worry about grabbing onto the rails that Sonic is forced to swing around and jump off of. In an optimal speedrun, those are both completely avoided, actually. Zetti taking an unfortunate death that's going to set him quite far back in the stage, Shiba K pulling back ahead because of it. These grind rails can be rather finicky as we get into the somersault under the platform as we start off the truck section. The truck section is the part of the game where a giant haul of metal chases a small hedgehog down a road. Luckily, Sonic is incredibly fast, and the truck should not be too much of a problem. Even if it does, if it hits him once, he loses his barrier, and a second time loses some rings. But Shiba K is going to be making quick work of the latter half of this truck section and falling right into the lap of the goal ring. Shiba K now starting on his own journey through the first boss fight of this game, Bigfoot. There are two strategies to use against Bigfoot. One where you hop on the back left box and homing attack into Bigfoot's weak point right on his windshield, and another where you somersault to make it onto the front left box so that you can just jump from that onto the weak point of Bigfoot's windshield far faster. As you can see, Shiba K goes directly for the front left box, wasting no time and going to take Bigfoot down. And you might have seen Shiba K do a couple pauses. That's really just muscle memory, as spamming the start button is the way to skip cutscenes in this game and not spamming the A button. Because of this, if you have a little bit of a misremembrance about what is and is not treated like a cutscene, sometimes you might press start in incorrect areas. Shiba K now starting off on Wild Canyon, the first RNG Knuckles stage. This stage scatters 3 pieces of an emerald around the map and gives you hints in hint monitors in order so that you can find out which pieces you have. The quicker you get all of the pieces, the quicker you're done with the stages. And some stages employ tactics such as clip outs and death to reset for better pieces, but that is not something you're going to see in Wild Canyon. There is also something known as a free piece, in which a piece becomes visible to you before you are given the hint for it. That may play a part in stages like Wild Canyon. It did not for Shiba K, but it may for Zetti. And also Aquatic Mine. It is very unlikely to happen in Death Chamber, Pumpkin Hill, or Meteor Herd, the most likely of those being Meteor Herd, but you never know, we may be surprised. Shiba K is now going into the first Tails boss fight of the game, Eggman 1. where you hold forward a little bit and then shoot your cannon at Eggman, and he walks into it for no undiscernible reason. He decides after you beat him that he let his guard down, and you definitely didn't beat him fairly. But he may be a force to be reckoned with later on in this run. Shibake now starting the Tails stage, Prison Lane. This is one of the most restrictive Tails stages, in which you are controlling a mecha, as you will be for the rest of Tails stages. And you lose a lot of time by turning, but the goal is to open doors and lower gates by shooting the enemies in your way. A lot of this stage is jumping around corners, so you don't lose a lot of the speed you would normally lose by turning, and jumping so that you do not have to wait for other things to lower and other things to rise. An example of that is the gate hop you just saw Shibake do there, so that he did not have to wait for the elevator to carry him up slowly. He also jumps over the front of this, I call it an elevator, but it's kind of like an escalator on a square platform. It's pretty weird. But he jumps in front of it so that he does not have to wait for it to carry him up and then wait for the front wall to fall. Shibake now making quick work of all of the enemies in front of him, getting rid of the boxes so that he doesn't have to jump over them. That's really more of a personal preference thing, or whatever your Vulcan Cannon shots decide they want to do. But yeah, Shibake making easy work of this stage, and Zetti starting on it himself. Shibake is going into the last checkpoint, coming up on the second gate hop. That top beetle can be difficult if you are not already holding the homing attack button, and those three badniks, or Eggman robots, can be rather annoying and bully the crap out of you if you are not paying close attention. Shibake with a 140 Prison Lane, very respectable, and he goes on to Shadow 1. No, I'm sorry, Metal Harbor. I'm so sorry, Metal Harbor. Metal Harbor being the second Sonic stage of this game, you will see, for the first time, loop skips. There are a lot of loops in this level, and it is way too slow to go up any of them. So what we do instead is we kind of jump from one side to the other, or we just pass them completely if we decide that's what we want to do. Sonic stages have a lot of room for interpretation and personal strategy usage, and Shibake is already showing that there are also backups if you miss some of the strategies you're going for. Shibake picking up the light shoes, which allow you to light dash along paths of rings, like you see there, and there. He does a loop skip around this loop so that he doesn't have to watch the long loop cutscene of Sonic run up and hit the spring and run back down. Shibake doing a pulley skip. As you see, he only used one of the two pulleys in that section. He skipped it by jumping off of a ledge to his left and not having to worry about it. A 57, he would be getting a 56 or 57 check if he decided he wanted to hit the checkpoint, instead foregoing it and just going straight into Missile Skip. Missile Skip is done by spin dash jumping off of the slanted platform and going directly to the part of the rocket where Sonic grabs, instead of having to run slowly up and around and make it taking much more time. Shibake going to be performing the final loop skip of the stage with relative ease. 129 is respectable. Zetti going for a spin dash jump. The reason they spin dash jump over there is because otherwise you would have to watch another pseudo cutscene of Sonic springing through a long set of springs and making it to the same platform. It's meant that you can light dash across there if you already have the light shoes, kind of making the level easier if you've already done it, but you can just spin dash jump onto another platform that Sega left there, and you don't even have to worry about it at all. Zetti showing the non-pulley skip variant of this loop skip right here. Rather well done, good job by Zetti. Zetti going under the somersault platform and spin dash jumping 56 check. Shibake going into the shadow fight, You may think that it's a little bit weird that he's just walking into shadow and taking damage, but the main way that he's doing that is through a trick known as storage. Storage is done by holding the action button, either B or X, for long enough to make the game think you're starting to charge a spin dash almost, but you're definitely holding it too long to somersault. This gives you the hitboxes and the size of a somersault, but it does not give you the animation. Therefore, Shadow does not know to adjust his movement as if he's being attacked, because according to him, he isn't. This makes the first Shadow fight very easy and allows you to hurt him by walking into him. Storage is only possible because spin dash and somersault are on the same button, which is really funny because that button is put twice on a controller. I'm not sure anybody knows why that happens, but it is definitely to the benefit of speedrunners. Shibake is now going right into Green Forest as Zetti enters the ever infamous Faker cutscene.
Hey, that's that blue hedgehog again of all places. I found you, Faker. Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh? You're not even good enough to be my friend.
Sonic making Shadow eat his words as Shibake goes for the first loop skip of the level. Loop skips are definitely back in full force in Green Forest, and there is definitely more where that came from in that stage. Shibake going for the homing attack on the enemy to get onto that spring, and is going for what looks to be Green Forest wall run. This trick works because the game thinks that Sonic is in a loop. This is used so that he does not have to worry about nearly as many things. He gets to skip a lot more of the level, but it is a very demanding skip, and a lot can go wrong if you mess it up. Shibake actually getting the speed shoes, helping him out a decent amount, getting a 119. The reason the speed shoes help him there is so that it's a lot easier for him to make it through the next loop skip. Sometimes it can be a little sketchy if you don't have enough speed, but the speed shoes absolutely remedy that problem. Zetti is starting a Green Forest of his own as Shibake goes into Pumpkin Hill. Pumpkin Hill is the second Knuckle stage, comprised of Pumpkin Mountain, Church Mountain, and Ghost Train Mountain. It also is the stage that gives you the Shovel Claw upgrade for Knuckles, allowing him to dig into the stage. Shibake goes for a trick in which he reads the hint TV at the same time as the Shovel Claw information text pops up, and he actually gets to skip the Shovel Claw text completely. He gets his first piece and goes right into the next piece, which appears to be on the top of Pumpkin Mountain. Unfortunately, because Shibake is playing in Japanese, I am unable to tell you where the pieces that he is looking for are, simply because I can't read them. Shibake actually getting two pieces very close to each other on Pumpkin Mountain, finishing off with 3 scarecrows guarding a hut. As BlazinZzetti goes for bungee skip, this is where Shibake would actually land after Green Forest wall run. Zetti just goes for the normal checkpoint skip because wall run is certainly very difficult. Shibake now starting Mission Street. Mission Street is a tail stage. It is far more open tail stage in terms of width of the halls you're walking on and tightness of the corners, but make no mistake, this stage is just as linear. This stage, however, is not governed by how quickly you defeat the enemies that are closing the gates, but how quickly you make it around the cycles of the elevators inside of the level. As you can see, Weight Hop is going to be done right there, and it barely does not happen. That trick is very finicky. Shibake turning and firing a bunch of Vulcan Cannon shots in frustration. This may affect his ability to get first cycle, but he's very likely to still get the half cycle, if not zero cycle. Zero cycle is the first cycle, if that makes any sense to you, because originally it was thought that the fastest cycle you could get was 1 cycle, aptly named because it was the first cycle you could get, but it was found if you moved even faster than you could get the cycle before it, dubbed Zero Cycle. Shibake is now going to be going for the secret understage boost pad, obviously meant to be a reward for players returning to the stage and exploring a little bit more. And yes, unfortunately, Shibake barely does miss the Zero Cycle, but he does get cycle. He does go for the first cycle on this moving platform. After this checkpoint, right by the Phoenix. Oh, that's unfortunate. The camera does really fight with you on stages, especially like tail stages. We are not given the luxury of being able to choose free cam versus auto cam like Sonic Adventure 1, but Shibake does not appear to be too fazed by that at all, cutting off a giant portion using a hover. Also killing that honeycomb robot from off screen. I'd actually not seen him do that before. Very well done. BlazinZzetti finishing up on his own Pumpkin Hill and getting into Mission Street as Shibake appears to be coming very close to finishing. Shibake coming around the last corner and appears to be getting a 2:31 Mission Street. Not bad at all. BlazinZzetti is on his way to get hopefully a similar time. Going left around the rockets shot at him as opposed to going right around them. I don't actually believe that matters too much in terms of time. Zetti unfortunately missing the pause hover inputs. Again, very awkward inputs. It is A start and then start A. If you mess up even slightly, I think Zetti went A start A. It can be curtains. Now, the opening cutscene of Aquatic Mine looks like it's a huge waste of time, but you can use it to get free pieces. If you are looking around and you have your eyes open during the opening cutscene of Aquatic Mine, you can see a couple pieces, especially 3 fans. Shibaki actually doing a clip out into the ghost room so that he can get there far faster than having to climb down a hill and make it into the proper corner. He does another clip out to get into a far deeper part of the level. Oh, oof. Unfortunately, this is a very dented ceiling is an infamous piece in how difficult it is. Shibake trying to get it by jumping low at it and gliding into it, but unfortunately, it looks like he's not going to accept this, and he's going to have to go all the way back up. Change the water level to switch number 2 or 1 and get dented ceiling, or get the clip out again. Either works. Zetti is now going for the same corner cut that Shibake went for when he was at this part of Mission Street, and Zetti is definitely going to be looking to take some of that time that Shibake just took and use it as a catch-up point for his own deficit. Fingers crossed that goes well for him as Shibake enters Route 101, the Tails car stage, in which Tails modifies his tornado into a car. Nobody knows why he doesn't just use the tornado to fly over the road directly to the president, but he certainly does drive, doesn't he? This stage abuses a mechanic known as drifting. Pretty simple mechanic if you have played a lot of other racing games. Drifting allows you to take corners faster, but is a little bit more difficult to control. In this game, it's not that much more difficult to control, but you have a lot of potential to fall out of a drift if you are not spamming left and right inputs as often as you can. Basically, drifting is used so much in Route 101 because it allows you to maintain boost speed instead of giving you the normal speed cap that the game wants to enforce on you. So what you're going to see is players using boosts immediately after inclines on Route 101 so that they can maintain top speed for as long as possible. There is a rather specific ring route that you can follow, but even if you don't know where that ring route is, you can still probably piece together a decent enough one on your own, as long as you boost on all of the correct surfaces. A lot of the time you want to boost is when you are going after uphill, and not quite with a downhill in sight. There is one very key boost at the very end when you are on a straight shot towards the president's car. That is because if you do not have top speed there, you are going to be losing a lot of time, and there are literally zero other opportunities to get to that top speed again. Zetti actually having a very solid aquatic mine. I believe that was a 36. He's going to be making up a little bit of ground on Shibake, and we're going to see how much that matters. Shibake does appear to be going through this route with a solid amount of mastery. Coming very close. Oh yeah, he boosts immediately after popping that final balloon. Shibake is at top speed going into the final corridor of chasing the president's car. A good time on the stage would be 220 or under, but Shibake absolutely destroys my perception of good with a 216. And that stage probably has the least amount of variance in time based on skill, but it's a very important stage to learn if you want to really be saving as much time as you can. Zetti going for the boost immediately after the incline. Very well done. Proper technique as we go into a stage. Oh, an unfortunate spin out. Zetti is going to have to re-put himself in drift state and gain all of that speed back. Spinning out is something I'm surprised I haven't seen more of, as it is rather easy to do if you do not take a corner carefully enough. And Shibake is going to Hidden Base, a stage where Tails has converted his tornado back into a mech, and goes around a desert using hovers and other stuff he's not supposed to have as much access to as he does. Shibake looked like he was going to attempt a very difficult skip known as GC skip, but again, it's very difficult, and if your alignment's not perfect, there's a high chance you'll mess it up. So Shibake instead opting to take the level a little bit more normally, but still not that normally. This is a very technical Tails stage. It uses hovering in more ways than the developers intended. Shibake getting a glitchy jump off of I'm not sure what. Maybe it was the top of that pulley. And a 58 first check is very solid, especially without GC skip. Shibake now going to be jumping and hovering over top of barricades that are normally required to take multiple Vulcan cannon shots to break. Also, he jumps and skips, having to wait for the camera to pan back around. Shibake now jumping up, landing on this platform and phasing through more walls that don't exist, giving you a pretty solid view of the background, and coming up on the very end of the stage. Now he breaks down the final barricade, goes through the goal ring, 151, solid time. Zetti now entering a hidden base of his own. We're going to see how this turns out. It is a brutal stage. If you mess up even the slightest thing, a lot of things can go wrong in a row. Shibake is now going into Pyramid Cave, a Sonic stage with a lot of different tech that you can do in order to speed yourself up. First of which we are going to see very soon. But to start, you have to hold specific angles down this half pipe, otherwise you lose a lot of your speed. Shibake going for an hourglass gun jump because the game's not sure what shape an hourglass is. Goes into a chow box jump, abusing how the game treats forward momentum when you're up against a wall. You're going to see more of that kind of abuse when Shibake gets the bounce bracelet. The bounce bracelet allows you to bounce by jumping and then pressing B in the air, but if you're going fast enough and bounce, then the game transfers all of your momentum into going straight up instead of going sideways. That can be used to get through the first door without a key. The second door can actually just be skipped by spin dash jumping through the wall because the game's not quite sure how to load collision. Shibake trying to maintain as much speed as possible going down that section and super bouncing on top of this to get snake skip. This skip can be very difficult and very easy to mess up, but Shibake does it with little trouble. He gets the super bounce up and goes to one of the final rails of the stage, getting this hourglass and going right to the last loop skip. Spin dashes, lines up, 128.95. Absolutely zero problems from Shibake on Pyramid Cave. Well done. Zetti looking to be finished up with Hidden Base. Now only one full stage behind Shibake. Shibake is coming into Death Chamber, which is the most notorious Knuckles stage. It's notorious because it's very spread out, and if you don't like a piece, you can actually just die and reset it for a new one. This is the stage where this happens the most prevalently, and even still, if you get a piece you do like, sometimes you have to clip out of bounds to get it in a timely fashion. Shibake is going for a clip in the top of the red room in order to get a piece that is normally kind of far away. You have to dig through a wall and wait for that cutscene to finish in order to get to it. There is actually no time difference between English and Japanese, at least not on the HD re-releases, because English and Japanese on the Steam port of the game is literally the difference of one digit in one text file. The only difference between the languages is what language the piece hints are in, and some of the languages of other text in other places, but it's not very much. Zetti lines up for the second door skip as Shibake gets the final key in Death Chamber. First try from Zetti, well done. And Shibake gets a 110 Death Chamber. Very nice, 0 deaths required. That's pretty impressive. Although I would imagine in a race there are higher standards for what pieces would need to be reset on. Shibake now started on Boom Boo. King Boom Boo can be a difficult boss, especially casually, but many speedrunners have an ability to one-cycle him by punching his friend in the face to turn the lights on, and then just hitting him 4 times, using a special kind of hit so that he doesn't turn around and run the other way, and also timing it exactly such that you have just enough time to hit him 4 times with his invincibility frames before the lights turn back off.
Just made it.
And Shibake gets a very well executed first cycle King Boom Boo. BlazinZzetti now getting started on his own Death Chamber as Shibake goes for one of the most mechanically intensive bosses in this game, Egg Golem. Egg Golem takes the super bounce tactic I mentioned before, but puts it on a much smaller wall and a much shorter area of speed buildup. This can be very important because if you are not getting as good of a super bounce as you can get, then you might just miss the hit on the Egg Golem. Although luckily, if he slams his fists into the ground followed by his head, then his head is very easy to hit. Shibake showing that he has such an easy time on this boss that he can get an extra hit afterwards without a problem. Zetti actually does go for a couple deaths in order to get a more beneficial piece, and he looks like he's going to be finishing up this stage before too long and starting on the mini boss gauntlet that is King Boom Boo followed by Egg Golem. 107 Death Chamber is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. That is a rather good time. Shibake is now on the final Tails stage, Eternal Engine. This one can be kind of similar to Prison Lane in the fact that you have to kill certain enemies in order to get doors to open. But this stage is a lot more of using rockets to break things and hover jumping across large distances. It is also a cycle-based stage, and the cycle does matter for Eternal Engine Skip, which Shibake is coming very close to. So Eternal Engine Skip is done by clipping out of the level using the door opening on the immediately beside where you are, and you fly through the end of the stage in order to get to the end of the goal ring. The end of stage goal ring, excuse me. The only reason this is possible is because the end of Eternal Engine is a long falling down section. So because that's lends itself perfectly to Tails' hover slowly losing height over time, clipping out of Eternal Engine does give you an end of stage clip out, and you can skip 45 seconds to a minute if you get it first try. Shibake casually hovering through empty space until he gets near the goal ring. First try. That skip can be pretty difficult if you're not practiced at it, or if you're on a bit of a tilt. But Shibake is showing that it is very possible to get it first try. 208 is a rather respectable time. Shibake coming into the last Knuckles section, Meteor Herd. Meteor Herd is a space-themed Knuckles stage, as you are noticing that we are in space. Because it's in space, it is the most open Knuckles stage. There is the least need for a clip out in this stage. Because all of the pieces are just so spread out, and there are very few actual walls. Shibake getting a pretty solid piece set. And the second piece is a little bit annoying that it was all the way down. But Shibake is now going to get his third piece. I believe his third piece is Jump from the Star. Yes. Zetti is now going through Eternal Engine in a similar way to how Shibake did slightly earlier. A pretty standard Tails stage. I would actually say that it's not as difficult as Hidden Base, as long as you can get EE skip to a decent amount of success. And Shibake gets started on the last Knuckles boss fight, Rouge. This is the only fight with Rouge, like how in Dark Story this is the only fight with Knuckles. And basically the point of this boss fight is to neutral hover over to Rouge, drill dive onto her face, and then put out as many hitboxes as possible so that she can't actually get an opportunity to attack you. As you can see, Shibake just kind of looks like he's standing in place with his hands replacing his feet because he is jumping and drill diving just that quickly. A 16-second Rouge fight is solid. Zetti now approaching the Eternal Engine skip, as Shibake enters one of the most broken stages in the run, Crazy Gadget. Zetti gets a first try Eternal Engine skip as Shibake has an unfortunate fall. Oh, that's brutal. When I say the most broken, I don't necessarily mean all for good. A lot of this stage's mechanics don't work very well. Shibake breaking the glass. It did not look like he was going to get sucked into the tube, but he did actually, so I'm pretty excited about that. Zetti nearing the end of Eternal Engine Skip. Shibake taking a brief moment to make sure the checkpoint actually works. That checkpoint is notorious for deciding it doesn't want to. Shibake going for his lineup for CGSS on top of the black box. Definitely not an orthodox way of lining up for it, but whatever works, definitely works. Shibake flies through space aimlessly directly at a goal ring and does get CGSS first try. Impressive. Now Shibake is going into Eggman 2, the final Tails boss fight. This boss fight can go horribly wrong if a couple things go wrong. But there is an AI manipulation that you can get if you are consistent enough at it. But even if you can't, there is still a decent chance that you can just beat Eggman. He does tend to cheat in how fast his rocket fires, and he has some pretty busted special moves. But it is possible to just beat him out 1 versus 1. His giant rocket does look like it's going to be trouble for Shibake. It's insane. He should not be able to fire something that powerful, that quickly, and turn that fast. But Shibake is getting a second attempt at the AI manip. That was so close. It looked like he released his homing shot just a little bit late. But the big thing about Eggman firing his giant laser into empty space is that it does stop him from moving. He's able to turn, but he does not move much. Shibake getting the final 2 hits required to beat Eggman, and Zetti finishing up a meteor hurt of his own. 1 minute, 1 second. Not too bad.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Zetti still has the Rouge boss fight and Crazy Gadget, but Shibake is getting right started on the final stage of this game, Final Rush. This stage has a pretty insane skip that is essentially just flying through space and landing on the goal ring. But the kill planes do not cooperate with you, as they do want you dead. So we're going to see if Shibake can first try this skip. A lot of this skip is seriously just flying through nothing. But we're going to see if this pans out for Shibake. Zetti not quite getting the Rouge behavior that he wants, going for another attempt on it. Does not appear to go for the initial neutral glide, but he is going for the standing handstands, getting a lot of damage on Rouge.
Get away from my emerald.
For some reason, Zetti's music cutting out. I don't think I've actually ever seen that. This game has interesting ways that it treats music. Zetti now starting on Crazy Gadget as the level textures for Shibake have loaded back in. It looks like he's going to be very close to this goal ring and bounce all the way through it. A 120 final rush. Well done. Shibake is going to be going for a quick kill on Shadow. It's essentially sets of 3 homing attacks, where either one of them is longer and like more delayed than the other 2, or they're just spaced out equally. But we're going to see what Shibake decides to opt for and how it decides to pan out for him. Zetti going for CGS, which does not fly through as much space, but it certainly does skip most of the level. Shibake gets an excellent 1657 on Shadow. Very well done. 38-41. Zetti takes a bit of damage from the ground when he's trying to super bounce up to attack the Artificial Chaos. We're going to see if it can work out for him. He gets up and he attacks the Artificial Chaos. Nicely done. We are getting into the most difficult part of the stage for Zetti. You bounce off the door and then bounce underneath the wind tube and try to land right in the goal ring. Zetti does get it first try. Well played. Zzetti now going into Eggman 2. We're going to see if this works out for
No
them.
problem.
Again, a very well done race by Shibake. Executing very well. And we're going to see Zzetti take on Eggman. Hopefully not having as much trouble as Shibake had. But Zzetti is already 2 hits in. Hovers above Eggman's giant laser. Looking very close to finishing. Nice. 1934. Zzetti now coming into a final rush of his own. Let's see how this goes. Gets the spin dash into the rail. Oh, unfortunately, the bounce into that rail is rather finicky. It can throw you off if it decides it wants to, and we're going to hope that that doesn't happen a second time, because it can happen as many times as the game decides it wants to happen. He gets his second try. Nicely done. Does get the checkpoint. That's reassuring. Lands on the rail, and off he goes into FR skip. Maneuvering right. Going to be turning shortly around the kill plane so that he can line up with the goal ring. Fingers crossed. Gets the homing attack. Aligns with his hands to make sure he's not too far to either direction. We're going to be seeing the level texturing cut back in about 10 seconds from now, maybe a little bit less. This does look promising. Fingers crossed that Zzetti is able to get it. This does look good, though. Here comes the level. And we're going to see how he is lined up with the final platform. Oh. He is on the final platform and goes right into the goal ring. 127.99 is not a bad time at all. Zzetti is now coming into the final boss of this game, Shadow 2. Hopefully, we're going to see a boss fight as good as the one we saw from Shibake.
Before this is over, I'll show you the true power of chaos control.
Gets the first homing attack. Ooh, that was a bit weird. He fell a lot more than I was expecting him to. I think he fell a lot more than he was expecting him to as well, but he does get the second hit. This boss fight can be very finicky, and the falling platform behind him is rather scary. Coming up on the last hit on the shadow fight. Nicely done by Zzetti, 43-19. Honestly, a solid race from both players. Sonic Adventure 2 is a game where a lot of things can go wrong, and it was nice to see that both of these players were consistently able to get solid times.
Sonic, I did it.
Nicely done.
Awesome job, Tails.
Sonic!
Look outside.
Ooh!
Dr. Eggman's blast does not end up working because one of the emeralds is fake. Who would have guessed? But the fake emerald ruins Eggman's chances at firing a proper death laser. And that's the end of the story. Thank you very much for joining on this journey through Hero Story with me, Shibake, and Zetti. This has been an excellent race. It was kind of fun commentating Shibake and Tommy and Zetti, and then Shibake and Zetti. Just seeing how they played against each other. Well, Sock Puppet, if you did miss the race, there are more Sonic Adventure 2 Hero Story races coming up soon. We have another race at 1 p.m. and another race after that at 2 p.m. So if you'd like to catch those, then make sure you stick around because there are more races to catch.